I know what you're thinking right now. I know what's on your minds. I know what you're imagining. Every time I walk out here, and I walk out here with such grace and style, and I walk out here just carrying myself with such great balance. You look at me, he's tall, he's fit, and you're saying, he must have been a great athlete. I know. I can see it in your eyes. I can see it in your faces. You're just amazed, and you're just in wonder. Saying, wow, he just must have been good at sports and everything that he did way back when. Well, I hate to burst your bubble, all right? I wasn't that great of an athlete, all right? I know back then I was short and chubby, not tall and chubby, okay? So I'm, kind of changed my height just a little bit. But way back when, I love sports. I played them. In fact, I was involved, and I did the football, basketball, baseball. I was a part of all that, but I was what they called a bench warmer, all right? I was. I'll admit it, all right? And there were times where I found myself a little frustrated. I found myself, a little let down and just wondered about my place and, really, what I was supposed to be about, I never really got a chance to play. I was that kid, believe it or not, with 37 seconds left on the clock. That's when the coach put me in. And they didn't always pat me on the back. Oh, you did a great job out there. Coach, 37 seconds? Come on now. All right? But I found my place. I was always in search of that because I loved sports. I loved being a part of the team. But I can remember in freshman year, Jack Pratt, who most people in this area know, a well-known coach in this area, a teacher in Grand Blanc and so forth. My freshman year at Powers, okay, he was the varsity basketball coach there. And in those first days of tryouts and warm-ups, Jack was practicing with everybody. All the teams would practice together. And I remember doing the laps and that, and he would run right along with us. And you know what? I was struggling. Like I said, I was short and chubby, and now I'm tall and chubby. So it made it a little difficult with that running, all right? But I just remember him kind of picking me up and grabbing me by the shoulder and running along with me. And I just said, Coach, I just don't think I'm going to make it. I don't think I'm going to make it. And he just said to me, he says, you know what? He says, you're going to make it. And he says, you have a place on this team. You have a place on this team, and you need to find that place on the team. And I guess at that point, what kind of came to me and what I began to understand was the difference about being the best on the team versus being the best for the team. Being the best on the team versus being the best for the team. And I guess I just embraced that and said, okay, this is my place. I'm not the superstar. That's okay. But guess what I have? A loud mouth. All right? All right? People always tell me, well, you're awful loud up there, Deacon Ron. Well, I am, okay? Somewhere God gave me that ability to project and talk. And, well, you know what? I just found my place of being that spirited player on the bench. I always wanted to be the first one off the bench to congratulate my teammate or cheer my teammate on or encourage my teammate. I continue to do that with my kids this day, and I always tell them, and they're playing sports, you be the first one to encourage. You be the first one to support. You be the first one to cheer, for that team because that's an important place. And throughout my sports career, I actually have a few trophies that say most spirited player. All right? So, hey, I got a trophy out of it. All right? So I found a way to put my voice and my loudness to use. But I found that place, and it really started to resonate within me about, I think, what life should be about, and really what maybe being a disciple should be about. And I kind of thought about that experience in life in terms of today's gospel and in terms of, kind of Jesus's message, to his disciples. Of course, the first part of that, he gives his second prediction about his upcoming death, his death and crucifixion and his rising on the third day. They didn't get that. In fact, they didn't even want to ask the question. They were afraid of it. They didn't even discuss that. And of course, somewhere along the line, they start talking about, well, who's the greatest? Who's number one? Who's the best on the field? And of course, they were embarrassed when Jesus, kind of asked them what were they talking about. And he said, you know what? Look, it isn't about being the best on the field. Now, that's important, right, Spike? It's important, all right? But at the same time, he's trying to tell them, you got to be the best for the team. No matter who you are, what talent, what gift, who you are, you got to find a way to be the best for the team. And that's what I need you to think about as a disciple. It's about really putting others first and not yourself. It's about always seeking to put the other needs of the individuals first and not your own. And that's a struggle, because I think even in today's world, we kind of focus a little bit more on be the best that you can be. I mean, what is, Matthew Kelly, his message is always about, be the best version of yourself. That's true. You have to be the best version of yourself. But once you become that best version of yourself, my goodness, what you can do for others. That's truly the goal, and that is what being the disciple is all about. Being focused always on the other. Mother Teresa in 1985 was invited to come to the United Nations to give the prayer for that particular day. All right, 1985. And of course, we know about, Mother Teresa, St. Teresa of Calcutta, all that she has done in her life, and, just the inspiration she was. The introduction by the head of the United Nations on that particular day introduced her and said, I would like to introduce her. She's being introduced to all these world leaders and all these people involved throughout the world in leadership and that, but he introduced her as the most powerful woman in the world. The most powerful woman in the world. And he didn't do that to compare her to some of the other great world leaders that were doing great things in economics or peace or whatever, the things that they were doing to run their countries or lead their countries or their nations, their areas. It wasn't about that. He did that because her power lied in her efforts, her life, and how she lived it, and how she did what Jesus really tells us to do here. If you want to be great, if you want to be powerful, he tells us what? You take the least, you take the littlest, and you take care of them. He takes that little child and puts it in the midst of those disciples and said, you got to take care of this one. Now, that was kind of unheard of, to even take a child and put it into, a rabbinic circle, a teaching circle, or especially with other adult men, and to say that there's something special about this child. Children were, keep them out. We're not going to have them in here. He kind of broke that trend and brought that child up and said, this is where you start. You take care of the least. You put them first before yourself. That's what greatness is all about. That's what Mother Teresa was all about. Her power was in how she didn't look at herself all the time and take care of her needs, but saying, I want to take care of the other. That's the challenge that we live by every day. We're all in, places of authority. It could be as a parent. It could be as in a job, in a career. It could be, as a teacher. It could be as a coach. It could be in relationship. We have authority over others. And I guess the question for us that we always need to reflect on is, how do we live that authority? When we're with the other person in our life, be it, a family member, a spouse, or a child, or a parent, or if we're with people at work, do we lord over them? Or do we say, I'm going to find a way to first take care of you? And I'm going to serve you first. And what Jesus calls us to do is just that. Just that. That jealousy that's spoken about in wisdom, that destroys a person. And even in the letter to James, he's saying, look, choose God's wisdom first, because it will all break you down. It'll make you bitter. It'll make you angry. I always love the expression that our hate becomes us. Our hate becomes us. When we get to a point where we're just so frustrated with where we're going in our own life, and we begin to dislike, and we begin to have envy, and we begin to have jealousy, that just becomes who we are. Now, let's take a step back and say that's not who I want to be. And the letter to James says God's wisdom is the better wisdom. And it is to be more loving and compassionate towards others. Towards others. It's a simple message. We hear so much about it, but why do we repeat it? Why does it come back to us every time? Because he's just trying to tell us every day we need to take a look at our lives. Every day we need to take a look at it and say, we need to do this. So I guess today, as we live our life, we live our faith, let's ask ourselves, with those around us, do we lord over them? Do we want them to do for us all the time? Or is our first step to take care of them? Remember, as a parent, a child, a spouse, work associates, whoever, what are you doing? What are we doing? That makes a difference. It's okay to be the best on the team, but it's more important to be the best for the team. So ask yourself today, am I trying to be the best on the team, or am I trying to be the best